So, today we're going to demystify a set of incredibly powerful tools from AWS that are all about one thing, really, just completely tearing down language barriers. We're talking about their managed AI services for language, and by the end of this, you'll see just how accessible all this magic actually is.
All right, let's just jump right in with a pretty big question. What does happen? Imagine a surgeon being able to advise patients all over the world, or a tiny startup that can suddenly offer customer support in a dozen languages and expand into new markets overnight. And look, this isn't some far-off sci-fi idea. It's the real problem these services are built to solve.
In the world we live in now, all virtual meetings, global customers, this is a challenge we all face, right? We've all been on that call where some of the really critical details get a little fuzzy, or where a great idea just doesn't quite land because of that language gap. And these are the kinds of pain points we're talking about, the ones we all run into. You've got these miscommunications that can totally derail a complex discussion. You have customer support that just can't reach a new market because there's a language wall in the way. And you got to understand, each one of these, it's not just a minor headache. It's a real friction point that can impact everything from compliance and collaboration to actual business growth.
Okay, so what if you had a tool that could translate a live conversation, speech to speech, in almost real time? I know, it sounds a little bit like magic, but what's really going on is this beautifully orchestrated dance between several powerful AI services all working together. So how's it even possible?
And here's how it all fits together. The system takes in audio, then Amazon Transcribe turns it into text. Amazon Translate swaps the language, and then another service, like Amazon Poly, turns it back into natural-sounding speech. Now, for our purposes today, we're really going to zoom in on those first two critical steps at the heart of it all, the transcription and the translation.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Step one in this whole process, the ears of the operation, if you will. Because before any translation can happen, the system has to be able to accurately hear and understand what's being said. And that's exactly the job of Amazon Transcribe. So what is Amazon Transcribe? Well, at its core, it's an ASR, that's Automatic Speech Recognition Service. Its entire job is to listen to audio and spit out written text. But, and this is the important part, it's so much more than just a simple dictation machine. It's absolutely packed with sophisticated features that make it incredibly useful for all sorts of business applications.
So you can use Transcribe in basically two main ways. You've got batch mode, which is perfect for when you already have an audio file, like a recorded meeting or a bunch of customer calls you need to analyze. And then you've got streaming mode. That's the one that powers our live translator example, right? It processes the audio as it's happening, feeding you the text in near real time.
And this is where things get really cool. It can actually tell different speakers apart. That's a feature called diarization. It can automatically redact sensitive data. That's not just a nice-to-have feature. For industries like healthcare or finance, that's absolutely critical for compliance. You can also teach it custom vocabularies for your specific jargon, and it can even figure out what language is being spoken all on its own.
Okay, this has got to be one of my favorite examples of a transcription error. What the speaker actually said was, "This system can really recognize speech." It's funny, right? But it's also a perfect reminder of why accuracy is just so important. One tiny little error, a substitution, an insertion, a deletion, can completely flip the meaning of an entire sentence.
All right, so Transcribe has done its job. It's heard the speech and turned it into text. Now we need the brain of the operation to actually understand that text and convert it into another language. And that's where Amazon Translate steps in. The first thing to get is that Amazon Translate is not just some simple dictionary lookup tool. It's a neural machine translation service. That's a fancy way of saying it uses advanced deep learning models to understand context and nuance, which means you get translations that sound much more natural, way more accurate than those clunky old methods. And the scale here, it's just massive. We are talking about support for over 75 different languages. Just stop and think for a second about the kind of global reach that unlocks for a business. And this number is always growing, which basically just keeps lowering the barrier for companies to expand into dozens of new markets all over the world. Okay, so this brings up a really important question. One you're probably already thinking. That's great, but what if I need to translate my company's specific jargon or I need to capture a very particular brand tone? How do you make these general AI services work for your unique needs?
Let's take a super simple example we could all relate to. In Spanish, "how are you" can be formal or informal. A generic model might just take a guess. But what if your business needs to always be formal?
What if you need to guarantee it uses usted every single time to maintain a professional tone with your customers?
Well, that is exactly where Active Custom Translation, or ACT, comes into play. And honestly, this feature is a total game changer. It lets you feed the translation engine your own examples, influencing its output in real time, all without the headache of training a huge custom model from scratch.
And the best part? It's so simple to use. You literally just give it a simple file, kind of like the one you see here, showing it exactly how you want certain phrases translated. So in this case, we're telling it, hey, when you see how are you, use the formal usted. And Amazon Translate just learns from that on the fly. So what you're seeing here is a massive shift in how this is done. The old way was just clunky. It was complex, it was expensive, and you had to constantly maintain these custom models that would go stale. The new way with ACT, it's agile. You use your own data on the fly, you only pay for what you use, and your customizations are always up to date. It's a huge difference.
Okay, but with all this power comes a really important conversation. It's not just about the technology, right? It's about building trust. How do we make sure these services are being used fairly, responsibly, and transparently? And AWS has a really great way of tackling this head-on. They're called AI service cards. The easiest way to think about them is like nutrition labels, but for AI services. They're these documents that explain exactly what a service is for, how it's designed, and the best ways to use it responsibly.
And look, this isn't just some vague promise. The service card for Transcribe gives you hard data. For instance, it shows that on one particular test, word recognition accuracy was 92% or higher across 65 different demographic groups. That's a real concrete number that shows they're not just talking about fairness, they're actually measuring it and being transparent about it.
And that commitment to fairness, well, it's just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. You see these pillars here? From transparency and privacy all the way to governance, these are the fundamental guardrails that let developers innovate with confidence and build applications that people can actually trust.
So let's wrap this up. We've seen how these tools, things that honestly felt like science fiction not too long ago, are now just here. They're available as simple pay-as-you-go APIs. They're powerful, they're customizable, and they're backed by a real commitment to responsible use. The tech to connect the world in ways we've only dreamed of is right at our fingertips. So the only real question left is, what are you going to build with it?